Hi, it's Drew Blazik, Logos and Markets. In this video, we're going to do the revenue schedule. And the revenue schedule is going to be different with each company. We're going to show a certain example. It will teach you certain techniques. Again, visit logosandmarkets.com, look at the revenue schedule, and you can download this SIM method Excel sheet and you could follow along and you could practice free of charge. So make sure you visit the website. The link is directly in the show notes below. So let's go straight to the Excel sheet here. This is a revenue schedule. I like to look at the grade first. So a couple of notes you want to make. So the purpose of the SIM method is to really see how does revenue affect other schedules and financial statements. You want to see how it directly affects. It does not affect the balance sheet. That's important to see. Um, the weighted grade is it done correctly? If it's not 100%, it means we have to plug in something from the revenue schedule directly in there. The overall grade, are the numbers correct? As you can see, the revenue schedule is going to directly and indirectly affect all others, about 50% of our entire thing. So if you mess up the revenue schedule, it's going to have huge impact of our three statement model. Let's get to it. What we have is revenue schedule. We got pricing, quantity, and revenue. Important is remember that equation. Revenue is equal to quantity times price. Price is equal to revenue divided by quantity. Quantity is equal to revenue divided by price. So you want to see that. First thing we're going to solve is the revenue or the pricing. So what I'm going to do here is go to gross minus the costs of freight and warehousing. And I'm going to drag this across, hit Control R. And I want to show you the grade. And this is the powerful thing about SIM with the grade. I have two different grades. If you notice that the number is only correct here, it looks like we did it incorrect. I did that correct. If you go back to the grade, we completed 29% of the pricing. So that whole thing I did was correct. However, only 5% of my numbers are correct for pricing, 2% overall. So that's important to see that the SIM method will show, well, did I do the function correct? And we did do it correct. Next is we got gross sales price. Well, through our logical assumptions, through research, the financial team would have to say, can we make assumptions about the gross sales price? Do we think it's going to grow at a certain rate, or we're just going to make assumptions? So in this example, we put in scenarios. We got our gross sales price right here, and here's our different examples, what we think it's going to be into the future. Now, maybe those numbers don't make sense or do make sense, but that has to come from the finance team, and that has to make sense to the financial manager when you present your presentation. Next is cost of inflation. This is an assumption that we have to make. We're going to have a best case, worst case, and base case scenario. We want to know, and this has to do with market conditions, has to do with the Federal Reserve, has to do with competition. We want to know, what is cost of inflation going to be at? So again, that's going to be a scenario page. I'm going to cost of inflation. And you see there's our base, our best, and our worst. Those kind of, our worst case looks really bad. But we want to select that, which means if I change this, it will automatically adjust our financial model. Let's go to the grade. As you can see, our revenue, I'm almost 76% complete. 52% of my numbers are correct. And now if I input our freight and warehousing, and the assumption we always make with cost, we believe costs will grow at the rate of inflation. We've got the previous costs, and I'm going to multiply that times 1 plus the rate of inflation. And this should complete our pricing. Go back to our grade. As you see, pricing is 100% complete. Next one I'm going to do is I'm going to go to revenue. The purpose of the revenue schedule is to forecast projected revenues, and that directly is inputted into the income statement. So what we can do is go to the accounting team, say what is our gross revenue, our freight and warehousing, or net revenue, and we can produce those numbers from the previous year. So I'm going to go down, and in here I have gross revenue. All I have to do is hit Control D. That's going to be below it. So I highlight that, highlight Control D, and then I could add that up. Net revenue is gross minus freight. So I have that inputted in. I can't just drag that across. We're going to have to, The purpose of this is to forecast this for our income statement, our projected. We're going to forecast it. So, but we could pull it from the previous year to plug it in, and now we can do our appropriate forecasting. Since I have the revenue, I have the price, that's what I could find. Now we could find out the quantity. How many units did we sell? So that's going to be our gross. This is important. It's going to be the gross number, not after the cost of freight and warehousing, to find out how many units we sold. So it's going to be the gross revenue divided by gross sales price. Remember, this is in millions. This is not showing it appropriately. So we have to divide it, and then I'm going to multiply it times 1,000. We divided it by 1,000 to get the revenue number. We don't want that million number to show there. So I'm going to multiply times 1,000 to get the quantity of the units. All right. Next, what we want to do, now not all financial models will have this. A lot of them will. Is do we have a factory capacity? Is there a limit for how many units we can produce? Well, in our assumption, we do have that. So we're going to hit assumption. We said 410,000. And in my technique, I always enter that in. And I'm going to go to the next cell and then hit the previous. Or what you could have done is hit this and hit function F4 to make that an absolute reference and then drag it across. The next assumption we made in the scenarios was, what do we believe, and this has to do with competition, the market, what we think is going on with our units, is what do we think is going to grow? What is our forecast show for sales volume growth? So in this scenarios page, we have our sales volume growth. We have base, best, and worst. I'm going to select that and then drag that across. So we think it's going to grow at that rate. What's great about this scenarios page, if I go to the toggle down switch, I could switch all this. It'll automatically will adjust our financial model to what we chose. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to do it in an incorrect way and go back in it and try to explain what the correct way is. We want to know, what do we believe our annual sales volume or quantity will be? Well, it's going to be the previous year, and then we think it's going to have a growth of, it'll be 1 plus the annual sales growth. So if I do this, that's what I want to show. So it looks correct. And if I go across, well, these numbers do not look correct. Well, what happened? Well, if you look at the annual sales capacity, it is 410,000 units that we're capped out. I can't do any more unless we invest in another capital expenditure and maybe get another manufacturing plant. I'm capped at 410. And if you look at here, if we grow at 5, 5, 5, and 6, we're beyond, right, 398, 422. I can't get to that. I'm capped at 410. So what we have to do is we have to go back into this equation and make a simple equation. Well, some people do if functions. There's a very simple equation we could do, a function we can do to make sure we're never above that 410. That's real important. So this is going to be incorrect. So if I go to our grade, our sales volume is not correct yet. 67% done is because of this. And we haven't done our implied operating rate yet either. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into that and I'm going to go in front. This function is actually okay. And I'm going to type in a minimum function. I'll explain as we go. A minimum function is, we want the minimum of each number. Every time you hit a comma, it's another number, comma, another number. So what we're doing is it's a minimum between this function that we just created, which was the previous multiplied times the growth rate. And then I'm going to hit a comma. So I want the minimum number between what we just calculated and that capacity. So what does that do? It's either going to do the number, it's going to do whatever is smaller. So let's go across now. So it's going to say whatever is smaller. Is it this number or the capacity? Since this number is below the capacity, it's going to pick the 361. Since the capacity is the minimum, remember it's like 422, it will do the 410. So it's never going to go beyond our capacity. And if we want to increase our capacity, let's say to 430, and look what it does. Now it actually takes in effect the 430. So it doesn't go beyond that. So it correctly solves it now. Whatever you want to plug into that assumption, it will automatically solve. And some companies may decide to say, look, we're going to expand capital expenditures to have another manufacturing plant in this year, and then we could properly show in the financial our capital expenditures, saying 2025, it might be $40 million, and that will increase our annual capacity. We may have to do a few things to show that this might be 500,000, something like that. All right, so we can't go beyond 410. It's correctly doing it. And now what we want to show is, what is our implied operating rate? How much are we using of what our annual capacity is? So it's going to be what our sales volume is divided by our annual factory capacity. So we're at 88.2%. We go across, Control R, and we see when we go to the financial manager, we are capacity at 100%. We may decide, because of our growth, this is our projections, we may have to make changes that, for a capital expenditure to have another plant. So now we got let's just look at this real quick. We got the pricing correct. We got the sales volume correct. All we need next is our revenue. Now we could forecast. We have a properly pricing forecasted, our sales volume, and now we need revenue. So I'm going to go here. First thing we're going to do is gross revenue. What is the revenue equation? It's quantity times price. So I'm going to take our quantity. And this is important. We forecasted our output. That's real important. I'm going to multiply it times our gross sales price, right? Now this is going to be incorrect when I do that. That's in millions. I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is divide it by 1,000. And that's correct. Now we're going to take the freight and warehousing. Well, how much? This is total freight and warehousing. Well, total freight and warehousing is going to be our quantity, our annual sales volume. And I'm going to multiply it times our freight and warehousing per unit, and then I'm going to divide it by 1,000. And last is our net revenue, which we already solved there. I actually could drag that across, and that would be correct. So I'm going to hit function F2 to show it. Function F2, you can get right in there. It is going to be the gross revenue minus the freight and warehousing, and that's going to be our forecasted net revenue. Now all I have to do is highlight these numbers and then hold down Shift. I'm going to go across and then hit Control R or Command R, and that's going to fill to the right. Let's go to our grade. Revenue is 100% correct. Go back to the financial model. So we did the revenue schedule correct. Now let's look at, what does the revenue schedule, what does impact does it have with other schedules and financial statements directly? Well, it's going to affect the cost schedule. Why is it going to affect the cost schedule? Because we want to input in the annual sales volume for all the years. Okay. And once we plug that in, I'm not showing the entire cost schedule. That'll be a different video. But the annual quantity, the sales volume is going to determine the cost per unit, the fixed cost, the variable cost. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to plug this in and go up to the quantity. So we forecasted the net revenue for the income statement, but we needed to know the units, the volume for our cost schedule. Plug that in, Control R. And then what we also want to know, well, I have the sales volume here. We really don't need that, but I did include it, and we could just input it there, connect it. It's kind of a smart thing to do is not always go back to the original. You just want to make sure you connect it to the previous one you did. So if it ever changes, it automatically always changes. And now what we could do is we could forecast our income statement. We could forecast gross revenue, our costs of freight and warehousing, and our net revenue. So I'm going to go equal. That's going to be directly up to the revenue schedule. I'm going to go there. And what I'm going to do is, if I drag that down, it's going to destroy my formatting set line there. So what I'm going to do is, here's a new technique. I'm going to hit Control. I'm going to copy that cell. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight these. I'm going to hit Alt equals ES. And I'm just going to, I want to copy and paste just the formula. And then that's going to bring that down quickly without destroying the format. That's important to see. So now the income statement, let's go to the grade, is 100%. The income statement should be 100% complete there. The numbers are 80% complete because we still have to do one more thing. Our income statement is 100% completed. And then the last thing we have to plug in is that the revenue schedule will forecast net revenues, and through that we want to plug that into the working capital schedule. Now when we do the working capital schedule, I don't directly tie that to the revenue schedule. I tie it to the income statement. But just to show this, I'm going to go to the net revenue, and we're going to go to net revenue on the income statement. And the reason why I want to show this is that net revenue is important, very important, to plug into the working capital, and that's going to give us our 100% grade of our weighted grade, our overall grade. The numbers are correct, and our working capital schedule is complete. Again, visit Logos and Markets. I have all the financial modeling if you want to go over any of the schedules anytime. The Excel sheet is there. You can practice as much as you want. Let me know if you have any questions. This is through the sim method, and I'm trying to promote this. Please promote this best you can. Share it with you. Share it with other professionals. They can practice and get good at it. I want to say God bless. Thank you, and you have a great day.